Hello and welcome. My name is Michaela and I am finally back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about um, what do trans men experience? What happens to the female body when you take testosterone? When you have the testosterone levels of a man? Because I've seen a lot of videos on like how to tell if someone's transgender, or had people assume that someone's transgender over a certain thing. And I want to go over more detail on what it actually looks like to be a trans man. And also for those of you who are considering transitioning, what is your body really going to be going through when you start taking that synthetic testosterone? And so I want to explain what that looks like. I am somebody who has gone through my own personal experience with it, and I think it's really important to have information from somebody with a first-hand experience on it. So, let's get into it. The first thing that I think I really started to notice when I was taking testosterone is that my voice started deepening, and hence why my voice is the way it is right now. Not everyone will have a super deep voice drop, but generally speaking, you can expect testosterone to lower your voice at least a little bit, and for some people, a lot. For me, it was quite a bit. Another thing is you get hairier, and I mean everywhere. Like my armpit hair got longer. I felt like the legs, or the hair on my legs, got longer. I started growing facial hair. And so that's another thing. And to contrast that, there is one part of your body where you will potentially lose hair, and that would be in your hairline. And I do believe that when I took testosterone, my hairline resided just a little bit. Not much to be too noticeable, but I noticed it, considering it was my own head, that it did fall back a little bit from the testosterone. I also had like weird long hairs growing on like my shoulder or neck or something. That's something that apparently just runs in the men in my family. So I don't experience that anymore now that I've stopped taking it, but I do still get facial hair, and the voice change is still not going to change back ever. So what is the next thing that you can expect with taking testosterone as a female? Your body fat will change, and I mean dramatically. So my hips, my butt, all that fat went back to my waist. Instead of having that feminine dip in my waist, all of my fat went and filled that space in from my hips and my chest. And I also lost a little bit of weight too, which might have just been from getting the flu, or it could have been from a combination of that. It's hard to tell. But my chest, just to give you an idea, I had a D cup, and just from taking testosterone, it went to an A cup over the course of like 2 years. So it dramatically shifts your body fat. That is something to be aware of. It does not change your bone structure. So I remember my hips not having all that fat on them would stick out, and it kind of bothered me. So that's another thing to be aware of, is that your body fat will move and masculinize itself, but your bone structure is still going to be what it is. It's not going to change. All right, on to the next big change is skin. Now, other people aren't really going to see this, but if you are experiencing it yourself, you will definitely notice that your skin will feel thicker. Testosterone actually makes your skin thicker and oilier, so the texture of your skin will feel different. And That's something that I didn't realize, is that men literally do have thicker skin than women. Scientifically, our anatomy is different in that way. So, and another weird thing that I wasn't expecting was that men's pee smells stronger, and the reason is testosterone. Testosterone. It makes your pee smell stronger. And I noticed that when taking synthetic testosterone, that my pee smelled like man pee, so to speak. It was just very strong smelling. And same thing with my body odor. So you can expect all of your body odor to be stronger smelling. Your sweat, your pee is all going to smell very intense. Not different than it did before, but just a more intense version of what it used to smell like. So, and so this change is a little uncomfortable to talk about because it involves sensitive regions. But I do think that it's important for people to know who are thinking about taking testosterone. I was aware that this could happen beforehand, but basically, testosterone can grow the clitoris, can make it bigger. And I think some people are thinking about that and going, well, that sounds like a good thing. But in actuality, it's not a good thing. You have all the same amount of nerves, but a bigger surface area. Basically meaning that pleasure doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel as good, honestly. And I wish I had known that ahead of time. It's not something that's made a huge impact on my life, but it was kind of a weird, scary thing to be going through because my doctor couldn't really tell me about stuff related to that. It made me feel like I was a science experiment because, well, I was. There's not a lot of research on that, and so you're taking stuff that they haven't fully studied the effects of. But anyways, this video is about what does a female body go through when it takes on the testosterone levels of a male. And this is the kind of stuff you're going to experience. And back to the body fat thing, your jawline will get sharper. You will possess more masculine features. And for me, I definitely had popping veins. My veins would pop out because it gives you more red blood cells, testosterone. It increases that, especially because if you're female, you're not losing blood every month when your testosterone levels are super high. It completely stops menstruating, which leads me to another thing, is you don't menstruate, and potentially you don't ovulate. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of how that could be very not good for your body. That's not really what this video is about. But it is important to note that that can have very negative effects on your fertility. Is when you are taking testosterone and not menstruating. And menstruating is also the way for the female's body to detox. It's an important process. And so I will be honest, I hated my periods so much. I still struggle because of how much I bleed every month, and it sucks the everlasting life out of me monthly, and I'm constantly recovering from it. But I actually got to a point where I was taking testosterone where I missed having a period. I wished I could just have like a normal period where I was bleeding, the normal amount of blood, because I realized my body felt cleansed having that cycle every month. And not having that cycle, I could tell that my body wasn't detoxing the stuff it needed to detox. And that is something that I want people to be aware of, is that your body menstruates for a reason. It's meant to do that. And when you shut off its necessary functions, it can cause problems down the line. All right. So I think that is pretty much it for all of the, physical symptoms that you're going to experience. I do want to touch on the emotional shift a little bit, because that was a very dramatic thing for me. Especially because I went from somebody who had messed up hormones and was overly emotional to somebody who was suddenly unemotional and rarely ever cried. I noticed it's harder to cry when you're taking testosterone. That sounds like a good thing, but it's almost like your tear ducts don't want to work. You still feel sad and you want to cry, but it just doesn't want to flow. I don't know how to explain it. And I felt less emotional on testosterone, like almost emotionally shut off. Not necessarily a good thing, because it was kind of like I wasn't really feeling my emotions to their full capacity. And I was kind of just going along with life instead of feeling the depth of everything that I could possibly experience. And one emotion in particular was felt more so, and that was aggression. Especially if your testosterone is higher than what it's supposed to be. For instance, whatever my range was for a male my size, my testosterone levels would occasionally be higher than that. And then when they were, I would have a lot of built up aggression. I just took it out on a punching bag. It's okay. But that is definitely something to be aware of, is if you already have anger issues and you are thinking about getting on testosterone, just be aware that it does raise up that aggression within you. Testosterone makes you stinky and aggressive and oily. And I'm really not joking when I say that. That's kind of putting it into extremes, but these are the things that you can expect your body to go through, and everyone's experience is going to be a little different. I've known people who, when they took testosterone as a female, they had tremendous weight gain. I actually lost weight, so that's a pretty big difference. And I'm not entirely sure why that was the case. But that's another point that I want to make about this, is that there really isn't enough research on it. Like, you do need to understand that when you are taking cross-sex hormones, it is a little experimental. They have some studies on it, but they do not have enough research on this. And there are a lot of negative effects on the body that you may not notice for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And you may never notice. And other people's bodies are going to react differently to it, too. I also think that the testosterone wasn't always consistent. Sometimes it would change sources, and I could definitely feel like a difference between each batch of testosterone. It seemed like I had a different emotional thing going on, which makes sense because testosterone usually comes from pigs. And so if it's coming from a different pig each time, or different pigs, plural, you're gonna have different consistency with it a little bit, as far as like the emotional effect of it and the way it affects your body. But anyways, I am making this video because I want people to be aware of what individuals who identify as a trans man are experiencing when they are taking synthetic testosterone, and what it actually is to be a trans man. Another thing I would like to mention is that I was never referred to or noticed as a female when I was undergoing testosterone, unless somebody like Unless there was some weird circumstance, right? Like I was wearing a chest binder one time and my coworker patted me on the back and realized that I was wearing something under my shirt, right? But before that, he didn't know. And that's one thing I want to like point out to people who are all in their ego and they think that they know every time someone's transgender. I'm like, I don't know. I was somebody who went through all this stuff and I still can't tell. Okay? I cannot tell. I've met people and had no idea they were transgender when I first saw them and then found out later and was like, really? Like, people seem to think there's all these obvious signs, but usually, from what I've experienced, there's not a lot of obvious signs. And it's going to be different for each person. I've also known guys who are obnoxiously short and not transgender. I've known females who develop facial hair. I'm one of them. And so it's just like you really can't tell. And I'm sick of people going around in public and thinking that they can tell that somebody's transgender and going up and insulting somebody. Like, you don't even know what that person's experiencing. You don't even know for sure that that person is transgender. And even if they are, like, that is their own thing to work through. It has nothing to do with you. Like, all the people who insulted me or made fun of me while I was experiencing my transgender experience, all they did was make my life harder. That is all they did. They didn't do me any good. The reason I decided to not transition anymore is because I did a lot of self-reflecting and I started to see the world in a different light. I started to understand myself in ways that I couldn't before. And it had nothing to do with the people who were pointing fingers at me and telling me I'm flawed. It had to do with finding my own self-worth and self-love. So, if you want to go around and try to identify transgender people and insult them, I think you're going to need an x-ray machine or something, because I don't know how else you're going to tell. Anyways, thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you got something useful out of it. I hope that you learned something, whether you are a transphobe or a transgender or a curious person. It doesn't matter. Long as you got something out of this video, then it was worth making. Please stay tuned for the next one.